was at work all day. I don't know. I was at work all day. I don't know.
Jiu-Jitsu Academy. It's now live. Like, we don't have anything yet. I can do it. You guys can jump out there.
Huh?
We got one. Yeah, you're...
We're probably going to be kneeling and down and stuff, right? Sitting?
Yep. Yeah, you guys can go out there.
Sharon's here. We're good. Get out there.
I mean, if you want to be in the video, I guess.
You need to get out there.
You gotta list all those questions?
You can't hide.
You gotta get that pretty face.
You can't hide from the video all the time.
Jesus Christ.
Notice how he was the only one that was not being recorded.
We got 2 views.
Yeah.
2 people watching. What up?
Is it live now?
Yes, it says it's live. There's 3.
Yeah, enjoy the premium content.
Yeah, I gotta put my face in there.
Pull the plug out.
Comments will appear here.
Awesome. All right, so we're talking. All right, guys. So first of all, I would just like to say thank you very much for all the support and everything that everybody's been doing for us. We have had a great, I have had a lot of contact from a lot of people, really supportive. Haven't really had anybody comment negatively. Really super thankful for all the people that agreed to keep the membership going and try and support the gym for these 2 weeks. Like I said, it's been super positive. We haven't had anybody really quit except for the 2 or 3 people I would normally quit every month anyway. But nothing because of this. So like I'm just super grateful for having such a great crew, great staff coming in and helping all the time already. And yes, man, I mean, I'm super stoked. I mean, I'm not stoked to be closed, but I'm stoked to be, that this is the best that can possibly be under the circumstances. For sure, we have the best people. I'm so thankful for all of you guys. Thank you very much. So that being said, now we want to try and give a little back to you guys right now. What are we doing?
Yeah, we got a list of stuff. And Coach Matt had a pretty serious list of questions. We can kind of crack through those, or
Yeah. You want to start with grip breaks? You want to start with something else?
Go ahead. You hit the grip breaks.
I'm gonna hit the grip
Yeah, you hit
breaks.
the grip breaks. I'm not grip breaks. That's rough.
So one of our questions was about grip breaks. So we'll go through. Man, grip breaks are hard. Pretty much, it's like anything. It's the best defense is just not getting in there in the first place. But we'll start from standing, and we'll just go through some grip breaks that I like, and then we'll work down. We'll talk about some in guard position. So you have to adjust the camera shade. Okay.
make sure you get my hair in there too. It's getting long.
Cindy Sider says hi.
Hi, Mom. So, grabbing onto the gi, right? So if he gets that initially, okay, sometimes here, when he grabs, I can bunch up the material. And what's important is I'm not pushing back into him, right? But I'm breaking where the grip breaks, right? So where the grip breaks is the fingers and thumb connect. So I can pop back. What happens a lot of times here is people get up here, right, where I'm out of position. So I can't do that. I need to be able to step back and break, and then I always punch down so he can't re-grip me. Very important that I control. There's different ways to control that grip. You know, you can do traditional judo style, a hook grip, my preference, or just grabbing the wrist to control. One of my favorites, old school, this is one of my first classes I took. It's very effective, right? Is the bow and arrow. So I'm popping up again here, right? I'm playing off. Whenever he grips me like this, I'm playing inside. It's defensive, but I can start to work my way up to my own gi here. I don't want to be right next to his. I want to work down a little bit, right? So I have a little pull in the material. And then I can work up again. I'm not doing this big exaggerated turn where I'm getting myself out of position. It's very dynamic and explosive, but I keep facing towards him. And then I punch down and grip and control. Now I have a pistol grip as opposed to the hip hook grip, but I'm still controlling the wrist, right? So he grabs again. Another one that I like here, right, is I'm just gonna use my forearm and I'm gonna break against his. So a lot of times, again, I'm in here, right, he's giving me a hard time. I'll break, and then I'll get my grips back. Let's work on the other side. So he grabs my wrist here, right? So there's different ones I can do here, where I can slap the knuckles that work a little bit better in close guard, or from a guard position when we're on the ground. But it's hard here. Whenever I sacrifice my left hand here, this is what makes wrestling and judo hard in jiu-jitsu, is because I can negate vast majority of your takedowns by a good stiff arm here, right? A good match to watch is when Roger Gracie, the second time, went against BJJ. BJJ is known for his double leg and single leg takedown, and Roger Gracie stymied that with a nice stiff arm here from the collar and was able to take him down, or was able to get down and eventually win the match. But again, he grabs on. So I don't like to give up my left hand once I have it. So there's two options I have here that I like a lot, is I'm gonna use my shin. So if I have this one where I'm framing already, I'm gonna use my left leg to come up, strip, and then I come back because I don't want him to grab my wrist again, but I'm here ready. So when he reaches for me, because inevitably he's gonna have to reach for me to really get any type of effective takedown, I'm ready to catch. Another one that I can do, right, is here, right, I can come across over top and break that same way. It all really depends upon, right, which way he's pushing me. A lot of times the drill we use in the fundamentals, again, very effective. Right here initially, I have him off, I'm breaking. Now Coach Rob is gonna switch with me. He's free in space. He doesn't have anything blocking me. If he has something blocking with me, he can use that left leg, very effective. But if he doesn't have anything blocking me and he brings that left leg over, he's giving me the single leg, right? So instead, he brings the right leg over and he strips using that shin and hip, the leg power to come up, right? Do you have any questions off that?
Nope.
What are you doing? Are you working the camera? Or you taking
Yeah. I think there's like a 30-second delay.
Okay.
Or some kind of delay.
Okay.
So there may be some of that.
Cody says rip his head off.
All right, cool.
He's just mad because I didn't invite him over to my basement. We're quarantined, Cody. Chill, man.
So from here, some grips that I like to use, again, he grabs, right? Here, he's grabbing that cross grip. And this is something Coach Rob brought up that he's had some students ask him, is when somebody grabs me, right, when do I have to worry about this? And I would say until I've established good posture and I'm ready to pass, I'm worried about this, right? So good posture, ready to pass for me, right? I like to grab the belt and the pants. And so right about here, when I start to push back, I don't worry about this grip until I start to come through, right? And then I can worry about it again. But anytime before that, if he grabs me, right, it's gonna be a hard time. I need to address this right now if I plan on going any further. So right away, before he really gets set up with the grip, I wanna come and break. And again, we wanna seatbelt that down. I don't wanna break and then just let go, because inevitably he's gonna grab it again, right? And then what inevitably is gonna happen is I'm gonna break and sit back too far, and then he's gonna hit bump sweep me. Ah! All right. So we need to avoid that. So he reaches, right? Right away, getting a hold of that, and then pinning that down, and then I can either use that to pass, standing pass, right? Or I can just pin that down and use that as my pressure to keep him down, all right? So coming back. From here, another one that I like to use, right, is when he grabs, but I don't feel like I can break it. Maybe Coach Rob has been climbing rocks or milking cows his entire life, right? I've had this happen more than once. When they get that good grip, and I do this, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not gonna happen for sure. So instead, I'm coming back in and I'm keeping him down. I'm getting my grip, my long arm grip, where I'm just matching the gis, using the heel of my palm in his sternum. And then I'm just gonna make this where it doesn't bother me anymore, right? So he needs a cross in his wrists or his forearms to choke. So I'm gonna come inside, and as Professor George likes to say, I do my Chris Tucker. And even though he still has that grip that may affect my posture a little bit, he's not cross choking me. So I can use that and the tension I'm creating with my hands here to break back and eventually break his guard. Grips on the wrist, right? So he goes to grab my wrist. He gets that traditional hook grip, right? There's two I like to use. Initially, I'm gonna take the heel of my palm on my left hand, slap his knuckles back as I pull in the opposite direction. As I start to pass into an open guard situation, right? Same thing, he grabs cross grip here. I'm not gonna pass with this, right? This is very difficult. So I need to break this right away. A lot of times he's giving me a hard time with the opposite hook grip, right? So I can reach over, pull, and now this is causing tension here. So I can rip, and then I can go back to whatever I want to do as far as passing. So grip breaks, trying to not let them happen in the first place, right? Not letting somebody get positive grips on you. I heard this a long time ago from Professor Dave. And it's one of those instant game changers where the person who's winning the grip fighting is the person who's winning the jiu-jitsu match or the roll. So yes, go ahead.
Cassie says, zoom in for the love of God.
Well, zoom in.
Do we need to move forward?
Maybe, do we need to, I don't want to have you holding the camera for an hour, but do we
Okay, it's zoomed in now. Is that better, Cassie? God.
Nice.
But anyways, so the person who's winning the grip battle is the person who's winning the fight, right? So not letting them grip in the first place, getting your positive grips. Once I have my inside grips or my positive grips, doesn't really matter what he's gripping. Second one was as he's gripping, in the process of gripping, breaking right away. Very similar to side control. I'm not going to initiate my escape once somebody's settled into the position. It's too hard. I want to initiate my escape as the person's transitioning into side control.
Drew says, move closer, and Tyler has thumbed it up. Sure.
Well, maybe you can bring, yeah, there we go.
Do you want to go take a look and see?
Yeah.
Hey, I know what I'm doing.
Working out the bugs, man. Working out the bugs. Oh, yeah, that's good.
That's better.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then once they have the grips, man, you're kind of screwed. That's just kind of the way it is. And then working around, knowing how to work around those grips, right? Using the Chris Tucker coming through, using pressure to break and negate those grips. Anything to add to that, Professor?
Man, that's awesome. That was awesome, just the way it's just how I do it.
Okay.
Sure. Actually, I had a question that I think would fit in with this.
slide
I'm
with
sorry. I have a question, or had a question that I think would fit in since we're talking about hands and grips. And it was a lot of people, and I get this question in class a lot too. It's when they're trying to choke, whether it's a front choke or a rear naked choke. Man, their fingers and it just hurts their hands and it hurts their wrists, hurts their fingers. Like, what's wrong? What's going on with that? How to not hurt your wrist? So, wow. Kelsey, jump in.
Coach Kelsey, yay!
Everyone's just
I want a haircut, especially for this event.
shitting on me, so.
All right, so we'll do rear naked choke first. So there's kind of like back up.
Yeah.
So this is like a two-part, just two parts to this I want to talk about. One is the actual physical doing of it, and the other one is kind of mentality, because this is a question that's kind of close to my heart. I had a serious problem front choking people, especially from the mount, for a long time, and I probably didn't get a front choke on someone until, man, I was a purple belt for a long time. And one of the reasons was I always was making excuses of why I couldn't do it. My hands were weak, my fingers were weak, my wrists hurt. It was all kinds of crazy. I'd always ask my professors and coaches, like, how come, like, what am I doing? How can I choke? And I would show them what I'm doing, and the answer was always the same. It was always, man, it's perfect, it's great, you got a great system. So why isn't it working? It was me, not the jiu-jitsu. All right, so first of all, there is a structural way to do this, because some people, the way they hold their hands, it really does hurt, and it's just biomechanically inferior, right? So one of the things that we do is when we're setting up on a choke on someone, a collar choke, we'll look at just the basic collar choke A from the back. A lot of people, one of the problems they're doing is when they grab, they're not grabbing a very strong grip, and structurally our hands and wrists are fairly weak, right? if I want my hand to be structurally strong, I need to really squeeze my fist and lock it into place. Because our hand is basically just a bag of little bones, man. It's a jigsaw puzzle. So I need to squeeze my fist tight and lock my hand and my wrist into place so it's solid. A lot of people that have their grip is too loose, and then when they try and choke, their back of their hand is facing out, and they wind up in this really janky position where all the stress is on their fingers and wrists, and just this little bit of pressure is already hurting, right? So what I want to do is I want to set the collar. First of all, I like to roll the collar and grab tight with a strong, tight fist. And what that does is it locks my wrist into place so it's not going to bend. It's not going to bend around her neck. Then when I go to do the choke, I'm going to keep it nice and tight. I even personally like to turn the back of my hand, like open hand away, like this, right? And then I'm going to bring my elbow behind, and then I have a really strong choke, and my wrist and my fingers don't hurt. The same thing with the mount or the guard. We'll do the guard because it's probably easier to see. When I set my hands, I want to get a nice strong collar grip. And you see what I did there? I like to do a nice wrist curl and wrist it up. A lot of people are here and their wrist is already in a really bent position. It's already deep. I'm going to nice and straight. Now when I do this, I want to have my thumbs touching in the back. All right, so I'm going to go in, and my thumbs touching in the back. A big problem that always happens is the elbows come out wide and they're trying to go like this. And you see that circle in there? It's not getting any smaller. There's no choking. I want to turn, thumbs touching. For me to turn my hands facing me, my elbows have to come together, not apart, right? So I'm going to come in nice and tight, come in nice and tight, turn my hands, see how my elbows are coming in, tight, wrist curl. A drill I like to do is to lock the arm straight, twist, and just wrist curl, and just get the tap with the straight wrist. No arms, no flare, no nothing yet. If you have good wrist action and strong, stable grip and lock your wrists, it'll be a good choke. When I want to finish, I'll bring myself to the choke, flex my wrist, and then I'll flare my elbows a little bit at the end to make sure that I have enough tension. Let's switch it up a little bit. Opening up the collar, coming under, touching my thumbs together, turning the palms up, which brings my elbows together. Lock my wrist, practice the wrist action just with the arms, straight, right? And then if you can do it that way, for sure you can bring it in, and then I can bring my wrists apart a little bit at the end to really nail the coffin shut there. It's nice and tight. That helps a lot. Secondly, I talked a little bit about the mental aspect. One of the things that I couldn't do was finish people from the mouth, right? So I used to ask everybody, how do you choke, how do you choke? But everything I was doing was technically correct, so I didn't know why it wasn't working. And then I just started watching videos, high-level black belt matches, and looking at the way they were approaching the attacking the mount. So they would set those collars, and man, they were trying to they're choking hard. They're going for it hard. And I realized that I wasn't mentally prepared to try and choke someone really, right? So I had to really get myself set and attack that choke hard like I believed I could really do it. And the difference between a lot of people having problems choking with technically correct technique is, you gotta do it like you believe it. You gotta believe it's gonna work. And really try and choke. Once you get past that barrier, I think you start choking a lot of people. Awesome. Any other questions?
No, they're just shitting on people.
Everybody's just amazed. They're like, holy cow. What else? What do we got, man? What do we got?
I got some stuff on the show.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, all right. So, had some questions about ways for people to pull guard. Now, I understand some folks, it's controversial to say, hey, pulling guard's okay because everybody wants to, have the big brutal takedowns. I didn't grow up wrestling. Brutal takedowns are not my thing. I got a couple in the bag, but I like to pull guard because I like to play guard. So there's a couple ways that I like to pull guard. So I think about it two ways. Me personally, I have two different directions that I like to pull guard, and I have two different grips.
You guys want to move?
Can we pull that? How about now? Cool? All right. So ideally what I need to do is I need to get connection to my opponent. So when I'm setting up, right, if I'm slapping, bumping, getting ready to start a roll, right, ideally I want one of two things. I want either a sleeve grip or I want a collar grip. If the person's starting to reach for me, it makes it easy, right? I can reach out, get that hook grip that Coach Matt was talking about, and I can get set up to get a cross collar grip with my left hand. I'm very specific about which hands I like to grab with so that it gets into my system a little easier, right? So if I've got a hook grip here and I've got a collar grip here, usually what I'll do is I'll test it a little bit. I'll give a quick snap down just to try to get a reaction. Usually the person will start to pull away. So if I pull really hard, Coach Kelsey's probably gonna pull away. When I feel her start to pull away, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to sit down to my butt and drive my right foot into her hip as I turn an angle. So I'll snap down, she pulls back, and I'll turn just a little bit. My bottom, so the leg that's in her hip, I'm driving like stick straight, and at the same time, I'm trying to pull her shoulders over her knees and her hip. This is creating a ton of tension, which helps me set up my collar and sleeve. This is usually how I'll do like triangle setups, or I'll just start getting into a good guard to either sweep to side control or something like that, right? So, again, I'll kind of set up. We're here, I'll usually try to circle out a little bit. If they reach, I'll grab, then grab my collar grip, snap down, foot comes into the hip, and I'll start to turn. Then I can start to set up into like my triangle setups. Other option is if I'm going a different direction, right? Sometimes the person really is forcing it, they're starting to pull out to this way, and I'll circle out the other way, right? I can actually go for a same side collar grip. This is really good for a lot of the judo series. I like to do foot sweeps, stuff like that, just to start to get people to move around. Once I get this grip, right, I can circle out, I can really start to go after that outside arm, get my hook grip, and then my collar grip. From here, I'll do the same thing. I'll snap down, I'll start to attack the feet to get them to react, and then I'll sit down to my butt. So I'm not gonna lift my leg up to the hip, I sit down to my butt, and then shoot my foot up to the hip. Once I'm here, I have some options, right? I can set up my sickle sweep, or again, I can start to readjust back into other guards. They step out, I can throw in De La Hiva hooks, things like that. So,
I think Rob, by very specific with which hands I like to grab with, do you mean that you only grab with weird Ninja Turtle glove hands?
yes. Yes, that's correct. Very specific. FYI, these are Graps gloves. They're not just as aesthetically pleasing, they're really good for my hands.
Are they aesthetically pleasing?
That was sarcasm. I wear them in spite of how ridiculous they look. They're gonna make me some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ones though. I did reach out to them about that. So again, anytime I'm pulling guard, the things I'm really trying not to do, because sometimes you'll see people pull guard where they're just like grabbing and they're just trying to pull a person on top of them. I don't really have a whole lot of a guard here. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I'm trying to get some sort of connection. Ideally, I like collar grips, sleeve grips, and I like a foot in the hip. Usually my right foot. So again, snapping down and then setting up so I can have good tension when I land. That's kind of what I'm going for. Sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
They want
Pulling guard's not a crime.
They want weird chokes, darces, and all of that. I don't know if you want to do that. You can see it on the messages, the comments.
What do we got here?
How am I getting these? They want to see Noogie Ezekiel for mount or any.
Don't do it.
Any mount.
First submission I ever got in a tournament.
I've had
was
it.
a no-gi Ezekiel.
I've had it attempted.
Actual
at least.
serious question. Curious to hear about competition prep. How are you prioritizing your training sessions?
I think you could show.
Sure, that's a really good
attacks from
question.
mount.
So for competition prep, I've done MMA and I've done Jiu-Jitsu competitions, and I think where your training for competition is a little bit different than training just to train, is that you have to think about a system and a game that you want to play, and then you just work scenarios so that you can continue to fine-tune those things that you're looking for. The Jiu-Jitsu tournaments that I've done the best at have been the ones where I had an A game in mind, so I already knew the series of takedowns that I was going to go for. I knew where I wanted to attempt my submissions. I had options from every position, and they all worked together. And so when I went into my competition, I wasn't thinking about what I could possibly do. I had drilled those things to death so I didn't have to think about them anymore. And I think that that's really important when you're thinking about competition, is to spend a large portion of your training time trying to work those things that that work specifically for you in competition. And you don't really have a lot of time in your training to work on those other things. You still want to continue your progress as a student, and you still want to learn. But especially when you've got a big tournament or a big fight coming up, you spend a lot of your time working those specific systems. And I think Coach Rob would agree, correct?
Yeah, so a lot of the tournament prep that I've done, when you're preparing for a tournament, I really don't think about a lot of experimentation or like trying a whole lot of new things. It's really trying to narrow the game down to the things that I'm really good at and trying to figure out how do I get back into that specific thing. So that guard pull, legit, that is my number one like my tournament A game is trying to get into that guard pull, into getting into collar and sleeve. That's my strongest guard, my strongest submissions, and then all of my escapes that I was really focusing on. I'm trying to think, how can I get back into those positions so that you kind of muscle memory starts to take over. You do less thinking and you do more kind of reacting and what's up?
Okay, you can keep going.
You're waving at
Finish
me.
it. No.
They're just giving me the hook.
No.
Another thing to add to that in terms of preparing for competition is you need to spend a lot of time working from bad positions. So like you need to train tired, first of all. You can't do all of your rolling when you're fresh. So getting some good training in after class and really making people work you hard is really important, because no matter how in shape you are when you compete, adrenaline does really weird things and you'll feel gassed out and weird, and you have to be prepared for that. Especially if you've never competed before, dealing with adrenaline is a whole new ballgame. Working your triangle escapes, your armbar defense, defending people's guard pulls, knowing what you're going to do, especially if you're going to go into a tournament where people don't do as many takedowns. Working specifically for the rule set that you're working on, so like overtime positions, all of that is important when you're preparing for a tournament. But if you don't have time to do that and you're just thinking about doing a tournament, you should still just do it, because you're going to get experience out of it even if you don't have the best competition prep leading up to it. Especially at white
Like we
belts.
like to say, like nobody cares who the white belt
Yeah.
champion is.
Exactly, exactly.
You
Just
know,
do it.
Do it and just have fun.
Absolutely.
One of the questions was what can they do at home to be in shape and stuff like that. I mean, we've already addressed it, but
Sure, yeah. So I've been doing a lot of at-home stuff for a while. What's awesome, puzzle mats are really inexpensive. You go on Amazon, you can get 100 square feet of puzzle mat for 50, 60 bucks and set it up in your basement. You don't need a ton of space in order to be able to do that. But even if you just have a yoga mat or some carpet, if you guys come to a fundamentals class, the fundamentals warm up, we've got it on the YouTube page. You can do it right along with Professor George, and you recorded that a few years ago. A lot of those drills, I do those in hotels when I travel. There's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you got a significant other that maybe fits into a gi. You can also get them involved too. Occasionally I'll drag my wife onto the mat and ask her like, hey, can you hang out for a second? Can I just try this thing real quick? And she's like, what are you doing? But a lot of solo drills I think are really valuable. Really simple movements. Also, shout out to John Donaher. He just put out a really awesome free DVD on BJJ Fanatics for solo drilling, which I've been kind of making my way through the last couple of days. And there's a lot of really simple stuff that you can do.
Riley says she wants to hear how you berimbolo sometime. Possible future video, please.
Oh, bolo challenge accepted. For those of you that don't know what a berimbolo is, it's a sweep from usually like De La Hiva, but it looks really cool and it's very effective in competition for taking it back and choking people out, and it looks really tight. And I will do that right now if that's a bolo challenge. About that way.
All right,
All right,
you guys
let's
can
do
keep
it.
going.
So,
Do you want me? Do you want Matt?
all right.
All right,
So,
here we go.
I'll show you guys. So we're starting from De La Hiva, right? So De La Hiva guard, it's an open guard, right? I'm here. I've got my hook on this side,
Stand around so you can put your head.
right? So I've got a De La Hiva hook. So my legs wrapped around the outside. I've got active toe here. I like to reach up. I like to have a collar grip here, and I'm checking the far side leg. If she's like standing up and standing good base, she's gonna start to pass. I don't like this. So what I need to try to do is kick her leg out. Now you can see she's already off base. At the same time, I like to pull on the collar to try and get her weight coming forward, right? This collar drag is really effective because ideally, if I'm in a bolo, I want her weight going back. So if I pull forward, as soon as I feel tension in this grip, she's starting to come back. At the same time, I'm gonna follow and I'm gonna reach my arm underneath and I'm gonna start pushing my De La Hiva hook. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. I like to push directly into her underside midsection and start to get her butt onto the ground. All right, once she's there, I start to invert, okay? If I can, I'm gonna try to get my foot on the far side of her hip, and my other side is gonna match my toes as I invert over my shoulders, okay? From here, I'm reaching for this far side leg. If I can get a hook grip here, and I'm gonna start to pull her weight and her legs over the top as I start to take the back, finish and choke, or she starts to turn into me, you finish into my leg drag into side control. So there's a lot of different ways that people do this, but the most effective way, especially if someone's standing, is to try to get their weight going back.
Turn the other way.
What's that?
Turn the other way so they can see you all through.
Okay.
So I have your head on the
Other
opposite side.
All right. Getting directing notes. All right. So we're here, setting up De La Hiva hook, active toes into the thigh. I like to have this collar grip for collar drags. If I have a grip here, that's fine too. Right? So I'm gonna kick her, if her knees are together or close together, she's got good base. I don't like that. I'm gonna kick out and start to pull down. Really try to pull this. As soon as I feel tension in her collar, I can punch my fist, like basically through her shoulder as I start to wrap. So from here, I'm gonna do this slow. I like to wrap elbow deep here, and I can even, if they start to fight, I'll drop this outside foot and bridge off of it to get her to go down, right? So here, this is where those inversion drills are really helpful, because I'm just gonna turn my head underneath as I'm getting my toes to the outside of her thigh and her hip, pinching really tight. This is where people start to scramble and then they'll start to lose it. I wanna try to get to this grip, pulling all the way through so I can get up into my hooks, get my points, choke them out. There's a ton of different ways you can do the bolo, but that's one of the ones that I really like from De La Hiva.
All right, Tyler Olson says, curious about what options others use for escaping north-south.
Escaping north-south.
Yeah, what other options others use for escaping north-south?
We're gonna do no-gi melt attacks, Professor George.
He's got a
Oh, Tyler Olson said he
Just want
wants
to know-
to know what other options used for escaping north-south.
These are old questions, though. I mean, people wanted to see no-gi melt attacks and then Darce choke.
Right, those were first.
Okay.
And
so,
this just came in, yeah.
Just kidding. These are fresh questions.
Chewing them up.
That's a fresh question.
oh, okay. So you want to do the no-gi first?
Do a no-gi melt attack and then do
No-gi mount attack.
no-gi.
Yeah.
Do your
we go with
front
no-gi?
box series.
Rob, it was beautiful, and he passed the bolo challenge.
Nice.
Riley.
Benny, what'd you get to?
All right. So another good question. Another good question. Like mount attacks. As soon as you take the gi off and you take away the choke, which should be the first thing that anybody does from guard to the mount. A lot of people start losing what they can do. All right. So first of all, for me, my mount attack starts when I'm setting up. My mount attack starts when I'm still in side control. All right, because I want to set up the best kind of mount position I can before I get there. If I just go straight to a mount position and be completely neutral and let him get his hands in and be all tight and be all clammed up, man, it's going to be hard, especially with no grips and no gi, right? So when I'm taking the mount from, actually let me back this up a little bit. My primary mount attack no gi is scooping up the arms high and attacking the armbar, Americana armbar, or the triangle. Right, mostly the high scoop armbar, right? But that's very difficult to get if I'm already set up in the mount and the guy's already all clammed up. So I want to set that up from the side control. So I'm in my good side control, of course, right? I have the arm scooped, I'm ready to rock. Now, I need to get these arms flared up before I mount, okay? So when I mount, I want to be in my attack array. So I'm scooped up. I'm going to walk this hand up and over all the way to his head, and I'm going to have his head grabbed here. As I do this, I'm going to slide over and come into my grapevine. I know when we do the fundamentals class, we teach high mount here.
Can you turn to the side, like so they can see?
We do high mount here, right? But in this particular case, without the gi, and I'm a little bit bigger of a person, and if I'm going against a bigger guy, I find it easier to control a bigger, stronger person with the grapevine. But again, like I said, it's difficult. A lot of people have a hard time attacking from the low mount. So again, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be in my side control, my good position. I'm going to walk, get my armpit grip, walk the arm up high, control the head. I like to control the head because if I try and hold with muscle, a big strong guy's going to pull his elbow back and drag me back down. If I scoop up and I hug the head, when he fights it, he's going against his own head. It's hard for him to resist. I'm going to drop my head to the floor. I come across, pop, and I go into my grapevine. I prefer to close the legs, but it could be grapevine, whatever you want. Right now, when I have the arm high like this, it's already out of position. It's very difficult. I'm holding his head up, both hands, I'm squeezing tight, right? And again, a lot of times, I'm looking for this Americana right here, right? He's gonna most likely bring his arm around and try and grab his hand and protect from the Americana. I use that to scoop up both arms. Now look, I'm going to control both arms and the head with the tricep grip right here. My hands for base, right? So he's gonna struggle a little bit, but now that I have this grip, this is very easy to hold, by the way. With this, now that I have this grip, I'm going to post and I'm going to slide my knee up high and turn to my S mount. Notice how I kept his head up. Let me know if I'm giving you too much pressure. See how I have his head up. It's very hard for him to bridge out. I'm going to lean my S mount, and when I'm ready, I'm going to let his head drop and slide over. I come and I turn into my spiderweb lock position. Right? I have both arms, so there's no defending. I'll pull both arms. When I go to finish, I'm going to pinch and curl, and I'll slide to the arm I'm finishing. Let's, a straight on angle maybe?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. So I'm starting in my side control. And again, I'm looking to set up my best forward position. So I'm looking already at the mount. How's it going to be the best? I'm going to scoop up that arm. Control the head. Notice how I pivot my legs a little bit, makes it a little easier. My chest is on his face. I drive my head to the floor, pop over, and I extend into my grapevine position, or locked feet. I'm holding tight. I'm holding his head up. It's hard for him to bridge. He's going to fight a little bit, but it's hard to get rolled here. I'm going to start attacking this Americana. He's already holding his hands together, so I'll go right for the scoop. But if he wasn't, a lot of times they're holding behind my back or something. I'll just go for this, and relax. Another option right here is if he doesn't defend this, I'll finish this right here. But I don't do the classic Americana all the way down. That's a little hard from the grapevine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the top of his arm up, bring it in, and I'm going to turn him this way. Instead of like this, it's going to be forward and like this. When you have like anterior rotation like this, you're very limited on your shoulder motion. So I'm here. I'm going to grab. They'll feel it. They know they're in trouble. They're going to come around and grab their hand right away. I'll use that to scoop, and I'll scoop both. Now I have both arms, the head, and I'm holding on the tricep. Try and pull your arm out. It's very easy. If I'm slack or if I'm not holding his arm very well, he'll pull that out, and I'll lose the whole thing. So I want to be here. I'm going to post, slide straight up. I'm way past the top of his head. I drag my heel, toes to the sky, and turn my heel in, and then I turn to my S. I'm putting all this pressure on. If I really wanted to be mean, I could really be mean here. I'll put the pressure on, let his head pop out, step over, sit, lock my feet, and lock the spiderweb. And again, too, there's no defending here. I have the arms already both straight. When I finish, I'm going to switch to the finishing position, pinch, curl, slide down, and control the arm. That's my primary no-gi attack. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I do is try and...
Head and arm.
The what?
Head and arm.
Head down choke?
Yeah, set it up from side control.
Oh, yeah. Oh, from side control.
Or wherever you
When I get here, I will do a head and arm choke, but it's usually, the guy has to kind of be asking for it. Like, so like the guy will be like here, I'll be doing the same thing, and maybe he's defending, right? Here, I can walk over, right? Slide in, it's my finish. But yeah, that's another option for sure. I don't do it that often. I like the arm bar, but it happens sometimes for sure. Yeah, good pick. What else?
Front headlock series.
My front headlock series. All right, let's go this way.
You're gonna have to adjust him because he's probably gonna have to be at an angle.
Okay. Right.
So my front headlock series is based on my primary attack is the anaconda. The anaconda is going to be what I'm trying to do. Everything off of them defending the anaconda is what I'm going to be going to. So it's going to be all the reactions. So I'm in the front headlock. Boom. Right. First off, when we're talking about the front headlock, I want to have his head right in the middle of my body. Right. My stomach right on his head. A lot of pressure. I don't want his head sticking out of side or sticking out of side. I want to be centered, my hand coming through, palm down, this hand palm up, and I want my elbows tight, squeezing, not like this, because again, I'm going to give him a lot of head motion. I want to be tight, right here. Now, what he does with this arm is gonna really play a role on what's happening here. So my big 3 combo is right here. I'm always going to be trying to drag that arm across so I can lock up my anaconda. I want to have it locked up before I go. There's definitely ways that you can do it without locked up before you roll, but the best way for me, most secure, I like it locked first. I have pretty long arms though. So when I pull them across, right? So like say if you stay a little tight, defend a little bit, right? This grip is very important. If I rotate my grip this way, don't let me pull you, right? If I rotate my grip this way, man, it's very hard to get that. I'm not going to get that. Watch, I rotate my grip this way, and I bring my forearm to the middle of his tricep. Don't let me go. It's easy. It's surprising. Now look, another little trick. When I bring this across, I drop my weight on it. Because now even without grip, it's hard for him to pull it back because I got him sandwiched between his chest and the ground. This will hold him for a second or two while I adjust my grip. If I don't do that, I go like this, and I go to adjust, and he pulls back. Right? So I'm here. I pull across. Drop my weight, get him stuck. Lock up this rear naked choke grip. Right now, okay? Now, I heard some snoring. Now when I go to roll, I'm gonna duck my head down, and I'm gonna fall to the side. Boom. Notice how he didn't move yet. I fell off to the side. Now we're not back to back. Now we're like a T. Right? Now I will roll him to his back. Leave him on his back, not getting back up to his side. I'm on my side now. Now from here, I'm just going to roll, and I like to make like a horseshoe around his body. A lot of people like to turn, but then he just follows me, right? I'm just going to wrap him, and then come in and squeeze with kind of like an ab crunch. A common mistake with this is when I lock up the grip, you stay so tight that when I roll, I bring him with me, and I wind up smashing he smashes my face on the ground. I get sandwiched between them, right? And then we go like this, smash on the head, and then we wind up back to the same position. I see newer people all the time when they're training, they're alligator rolling all over the mat. They can't get the position because they just keep rolling, right? So I'm here, tight, pull it across, trap it, lock up the grip. Now when I go to do this grip, obviously I have to soften it up a little bit so I can slide. I slid off the side. Now I tight, and when I go to roll him, say he doesn't want to go. He's super tight, he's super defending, he's based out, he doesn't want to roll. This pressure of trying to turn him is the choking pressure. He's just going to tap, he's just going to choke himself if he doesn't go. So I don't have to be super strong to roll him. The pressure to roll will either choke him or he will roll to not get choked. Make sense? Now, how he reacts to that. One of my favorite options is right here. I'm gonna try, his arm is really back and he's really hunkered in tight. A lot of times they bring their elbow back, so I can't pull it across, and he's so low I can't break this angle off the ground. So I'm here. But when his arm is back, he's exposing his neck. When his arm is up, he's defending his neck, but his arm is available. Right? So now I'm gonna go to try and pull his arm, but he hangs really low, he squats down low, and his arm goes back far. So here, I'm gonna take this hand and I'm just gonna snake it under his arm from here to here. I'm pulling, he's resisting, I'm pulling, he's resisting. I just go here, whoop, and then I lock it up right here. I like to fall a little bit of an angle, and I just basically rear naked choke him upside down. I call it a power guillotine. That's what I've always called it for like 10 years. I don't think that's what people call a power guillotine today. I think it's something different, but they keep changing the name of stuff, I don't know. So here, again, I'm here. I'm trying to pull the arm across. He's pulling his elbow back really far. He's not letting me get it. He's not letting me get it. And I just switch it. Whoop. Lock up the rear naked choke right here. I like to just fall to the side. There's definitely meaner ways to do this, but I just fall to the side and rear naked choke him inverted. So what else? What else? Oh yeah, my last one.
You can come like a step closer.
Man, I got so many options from here. Which we gotta pick one more. Which one you like the best?
What's the next one? The next one you've already done. You fall. You sit back to the guillotine, right? Or do the arm in.
The head down guillotine?
Yeah.
The arm in? Well, there's two variations of that. There's if he's trying to tackle my body, or if he's trying to single leg, or if he's just this one right here. So here is just let's go to tackle, because that's the classical. So if he's got his arm on this side of my body, I'm just gonna head and arm guillotine him, which means I will just fall over to the side, throw the hook, and finish him with the guillotine right there. Let's change the angle on that.
Yeah.
The head and arm guillotine is a little tricky. It's actually a little deceiving. I don't like the fact that they call it a head and arm guillotine, because it's kind of a different choke. It's not really a guillotine. A guillotine implies that I put my arm all the way through and get the nice V on the neck, right? Especially like a high elbow where I bring it up high. But this is just right here. This is all I'm grabbing. It's getting like a chin strap grip, right? So when I do this, I'm gonna get that chin strap grip, and I'm over the arm, and I'm locking up like a guillotine grip, right here. My shoulder is behind his neck. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make is they try and pull the person right onto them and try and get a guard, and the guy winds up hopping over, right? My only concern when I get the head and arm grip is that the guy doesn't hop over to my opposite side. So when I do this, right, all I'm gonna do is fall to my side and put my leg up. Right, I just put his head on the ground. So now if he tries to jump, I catch him. This leg is hooked, and this leg is right here. See this gap? No good. I need to sit up and crunch and get the back of my shoulder on the back of his neck. Now, I just squeeze it, and the pressure I'm doing is turning his head so his nose touches his chest. And it's a quick tap. A lot of people do this in a way that's really, it's almost like a crank, and it's rough. It still works, but it's brutal. The more technical one is bringing the nose to the chest and putting that grip right here. The other side is right there, and you get a nice choke. So one more time, let's do it on this side. Trying to figure out an angle.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So they can see that.
So I'm here. Now, of course, this has to be here. If they're on this side, or if their arms are in, I can come with a different version, which is more like a triangle choke, really. Now my arm is all the way through. Boom. But that's not what we're doing here. It's here. Boom. I got the chin strap grip. I just fall and catch him, right? And let's turn a little bit so you can see under there. See the grip right here, right here. Boom, boom. Even without the legs, my grip is, my pressure is going to be make his nose touch his chest.
George, can you move your leg like do that? Yeah.
That's right. I can choke Rob all day. It's fine. He doesn't mind.
There.
Oh, that way. Yeah. The more of a T angle, the better, actually.
Should I do a close-up? Like Bailey's saying, get close up, Shehan.
Bailey, I can show you when you come in.
No, he just wants to take some screenshots of my struggle phase.
That's what it is. They just want me to choke Rob.
That's all it is. The people are just like, bing, bing, screenshot, screenshot. Oh, you got some questions?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. Put your knee on Rob. Go. All right, now. That's one of my favorites. That's the Henzo Gracie staple right there.
All right, guys. So we have some questions about how to be heavy while you're trying to pin, and then we also have questions about how to attack from side control if you're a smaller person. So I'm going to answer the question about being heavy first, and then I'm going to show you a choke from side control that was probably my favorite choke of 2019. So just to kind of get started here, when you talk about being heavy, if you're a heavy person, that's going to be really easy because by the nature of being on top of somebody, you are sufficiently pinning them. If you don't have a lot of weight to work with, it's about taking away space. So as a small person, I like to move my body around to find ways to actually pin. So just starting from mount, to just kind of give you an idea, if you've ever rolled with me and you're a little bit bigger than I am, you probably would notice that I don't spend a lot of time in mount like this. This isn't really going to do a whole lot for me. When I attack, I usually start my attacks from the low mount, and I think about putting my hips down into the person. Again, I'm taking away space. Okay, so I'm dropping my hips low. But when I'm really just focused on trying to stay on top of a person, I usually switch my hips. And this is really similar to how we start our collar chokes from the mount, what we've been doing in fundamentals class and the intermediate class. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to switch my base. So I'm going to put my right hip on the ground, and I'm putting my right elbow on the ground, like this, okay? This foot is really tight to his hip, and this knee over here is pinned to his hip. And I'm going to move here in a moment so you can see, okay? Now, if I really want to be mean, it's not so much my body weight, but what I'm going to do to his face. So I'm thinking about pushing his face down into the floor, okay? And now I'm pretty safe. He can buck me around, but I've got a post behind me and I've got a post in front of me. And now I'm kind of watching for him to start doing something stupid, right? I'm either going to start setting up my chokes, or if he starts defending here, I'm looking for my Americana. And that works really well, so let's rotate here, okay? So same thing, right? I'm putting that right elbow on the ground, right hip on the ground. So if you see here, my foot isn't close to him because if I do that, if he starts bucking me, I'm going to get rolled. Okay? I'm putting my foot behind me as a kickstand. And I'm thinking about pushing onto his face. Okay? Side control. Okay? A lot of people, when they first start doing side control, they think about pinning their upper body down into the other person's upper body, but then there's a lot of space in the middle. And little people will capitalize on that, so don't do that. But a lot of times when people do side control, their butt's up high, their knees aren't close to the person's body, and they're thinking about pushing down into the person. Which again, if you've got a lot of body weight, that's going to work really well for you. But if you don't have a lot of body weight to deal with, you have to think more about horizontal pressure. So what I do instead, especially if I'm thinking about pinning, first of all, I want to make sure I've got a good cross face, right? My knees are in close, but now watch my toes, okay? My toes are going to curl underneath me, and now if I really want to pin, I'm going to think about horizontal pressure. I'm going more at like a diagonal angle instead of straight up and down. So now if he starts moving, I have pressure coming into him, right? If I'm worried about him doing anything crazy, I can move my hand over here, right? It starts moving, and I can start pushing into him. Okay, that feels a lot heavier. Okay? From here, I like to work on a choke. Okay, so this is kind of an equal opportunity choke. It works on necks of all sizes, and you don't have to be super strong to do it. In fact, if you have somebody who's bigger than you, they're probably going to choke really easily. Okay, so what I'm looking for is that diagonal pressure, and I want to get my partner to react. I want them to start pushing into me. Okay, so I'm in my position here. And my partner is starting to develop frames. He doesn't like this diagonal pressure I'm pushing into him, right? Now I'm going to pull my own lapel out. I'm pulling out my right lapel. So I have to be sneaky about this. This is the difficult thing about what I'm doing with lapel chokes, is that there's a part of this that isn't super sneaky. So you have to make sure that you're really convincing them that you want to pin. Okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm pushing into him, right? Meanwhile, I'm pulling out my lapel. And I'm going to take that lapel, and I'm going to try to extend it as much as I can. I can continue to pin him and control the pants here, right? But I want him to start framing into me because he doesn't like this pressure.
What's going on with the volume?
Did volume cut out? Anyone else have that problem? Or
Standby technical difficulties.
just talk, I guess.
Okay. Rob is thinking about getting choked right now.
It's working.
It's working. It might be.
Okay, so.
Continue.
Okay, so.
It was her.
That's right.
I've,
Right.
so I've got this lapel ready to go, right? I've got that tail ready to go. And now look, I'm going to pass the tail through his arms here to my bottom hand. And now I'm taking my right hand over to the other side, and I'm going to turn to north-south. Now to clear his body, I have to tripod. So I'm lifting my butt up, and I'm just turning. Ooh. Equal opportunity choke. Okay? So again, I'm inside control. I've got a good cross face. I've got his pants, and I'm pushing into him. He probably won't like that, so he's gonna start framing, right? That's what I want, okay? So now once I have my tail, I'm gonna pass it over to my bottom hand, okay? This hand is my post, and now I'm going to tripod. My head is coming to where my hips were, okay? So coming up, okay, I'm tripoding, and I'm just flipping around. It's effective, it works really well. I usually like to pair that with grabbing his own lapel too, to start exposing that elbow and setting up chokes from knee on belly. The combination of those two things, again, makes me feel heavy to the other person. I'm not actually heavy, but I'm taking away space, and I'm using that angle of pressure to make myself appear heavier than I actually am. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Actually, I would like to add one thing. We only have about 3 minutes or so we'll just wrap it up with this. That was awesome. That's a great choke, by the way. I love that choke. When it comes to putting pressure, because a couple of people asked this question in a little bit different way. So one of the things I want to say really quick is that a lot of this is more of like a philosophical version of the answer. But when you're talking about pressure, a lot of it just depends on the kind of pressure you want to put on. It really depends on the goal that you're trying to accomplish for that particular position, because it's not always the same. I like to break it. There's two different kinds of pressure. I call it like the ball peen hammer, right? And what makes a ball peen hammer so strong to be able to bust a rock, right? It's because it's not a very big hammer, but the surface area that's actually impacting is so small. All that energy is in such a small spot. It's really heavy. So the hammer doesn't have to be that big itself. And then you have what my instructor, Amal Eason, used to say all the time is like, you want to be the wet blanket. If you can think about it this way, what do you think is harder to get out of? If somebody put a piece of plywood on top of you, a 6x8 piece of plywood on top of you, you can just push that off even if it's heavy. But if a sopping wet down comforter that somebody just threw on you, man, it's hard to get that off. It would be heavy, it'd be so uncomfortable. It's kind of like the equivalent of trying to pick up like a limp body. I mean, it's just so much heavier than what it should be, you know? And that's kind of like the way to classify the two versions. And like with the side control going out, like Coach Kessler did a really great job of explaining this with that angle pressure. Like for me, one of my favorite ways to hold side control, especially if I want to hold someone and just grind them out, like I'm not particularly interested in moving, I just want to wear them out a little bit, is, man, like I love to get that armpit grip or even get the collar underneath, right? And I slide my shoulder low and come up under their neck, and then I'll just go long and I'll sit on them. And there's no part of me that's touching his body, only this. Go ahead and escape. Like he's not moving. He's not moving at all. Right? It's not happening. I sit here all day. And a lot of times I can get people to tap because if I can get the angle right, that'll be a choke too.
You want to do it the other way too? So they can see when you extend.
So head this way.
Yes, like that.
I'm just grabbing. the lapel underneath there, and I'm sliding my shoulder down, and I slide up underneath his neck, and I just get long and low, and then I just turn my shoulder a little bit. Now I'm exaggerating a little bit so you guys can see, but like maybe I'll hold the hip or control the leg or something, but like this is all the pressure, right? So that would be kind of like pinpoint pressure. A position where like I need to get like more of like a wet blanket type of pressure is when I'm passing half guard. So I'll be in the half guard and I'm looking at the underhook. Right now, I need to control his whole body. I want to keep his chest pinned, but I also need to keep his hips pinned. So that means I need to be low, get my underhook. I need to be low and long, and I need to be heavy on the top, but heavy on the hips, right? So I can turn his hips, drive up on him, get here, and do my pass, right? So I have to, now we're talking about more surface area, so that relies more on me being a little bit more balanced, right? Keeping my center line, and knowing that where I want my weight leaning on him. So it really just depends on the position we're talking about, you know, and the goal that we're trying to do, because trying to pin someone, trying to progress, trying to stop someone from progressing on you, it requires a little bit different of a flavor, right? Cool? All right, man, is that it? You want to do a closeout? Man. I don't know, what is a closeout? What's a live video closeout? I've never done one.
Thank everybody for watching.
All right, go ahead. Well, thanks guys, thanks for watching. This was really fun, man. Time went by really fast, holy cow. We'll definitely have a bunch of more questions that we could have answered for sure. We'll definitely do another one. We'll announce it for sure. Thanks for watching, and keep those questions coming, because if we're gonna do more videos, we need stuff to do, so just keep them coming, man.
All right, that's it. No.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right, guys, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.